Как вы работаете, какие инструменты вы используете для того, чтобы взаимодействие городских финансовых механизмов и частных инвестиций шло наиболее эффективно?
Thank you very much. Let me start thanking the city of Moscow and for the invitation. I'm really honored and happy to be here. I just got here at 5 a.m. in the morning. I already love your city, so I apologize for not speaking in your beautiful language, so I will address you in English. So sorry for that. Let me talk to you a little bit about my city because it may sound some familiar rings to you. My city is the capital city of my country. It is the largest urban agglomeration of my country. It contributes with about 24% of GDP. It's the financial and transportation hub of my country. You know, it's very similar to where we are sitting right now. So there are a lot of similarities between agglomerations. Big cities resemble a lot in their scale and in their problems. We may have a lot of differences. Let me talk to you two differences between Moscow and Mexico City. One, Mexico City sits in a plateau at 2,200 meters above sea level, no? Which means that we have to pump the water up significantly, whether you get the water straight from the river. We have to work hard in order to get the water up to Mexico City. And the other one is that we are 1,000 kilometers away from mainland USA, which means that we have no choice. We have to be a global player. We are in the economic axis of the United States. Even Mexico City belongs to the economic axis of the United States. So we need to be global players. We have no choice. Other countries, other mega cities might have the choice of, joining the global economy. We have no choice. We have to join the global economy. And what we have learned is that globalization happens in the cities. Globalization happens especially in big cities, and if countries want to become global players, they become global players one city at a time. So let me paraphrase the economist Joseph Schumpeter. Local is beautiful, you know. In the times of globalization, being local is very important. And Mexico City has realized that, and over the last 20 years has embarked in a big effort to become more modern, more market-oriented city, and investing in infrastructure, which is basically my job in the Mexico City government, is clearly one of the main challenges for the city, especially because maybe like Moscow, we don't have much money, so we have to use our imagination. We have to use what it takes. We have to use markets in order to bring investors in and help us do what we cannot do and what we don't know what to do. What we're doing, what we have done over the last 4 to 5 years, well, we realized that we needed to catch up with other mega cities, with other urban centers, and that we didn't have much money. But what is it that we have? We have land reserves. We have the power to extend permits. We have the right-of-way. So we have intangibles. We have a lot of resources other than budget resources in order to bring investors, both domestic and foreigners, in order to build the projects that we need. Let me talk to you about what we are doing currently. What we did was to rank the projects that we needed according to their potential of being taken over by private investors. we started with the motorways, the inner city toll roads. And that presented a very particular challenge to Mexico City. As you may know, Mexico City was built on a swampy lake. So the land in Mexico City, as one of our colleagues may know, it's very shaky. It's very different. It's very difficult to build on. But there's a main western corridor, which is probably the most economic and financially important corridor in all Latin America. It's the west end corridor of Mexico City that intersects the city and divides the city's financial center from the urban center, and is probably the most economically rich corridor in all Latin America. What we set out to do was to make a concession of the right-of-way of the existing motorway. So, in our words, we built a second floor to the existing motorway. So instead of fighting for the right-of-way with all the neighbors, we built on top of the existing motorway. From the engineering point of view, it was a very challenging project. But once we built the first stage, the other ones, came across very rapidly, and we're very happy. We have built over 28 kilometers over the last 4 years under a concession mode, with foreign investors playing a big role, Spanish companies, American companies, local companies. Mr. Carlos Slim is one of the investors in one of the projects. So we ranked the projects according to their potential to be financed and executed by the private sector. This second floor to the existing motorway, for instance, was one of the clear candidates to be fully financed by the private sector, but by private investors. We ranked them accordingly to their capabilities of being financed by financial markets and by private investors. And at the end of the ladder, we took the projects that we have no other choice but using public sector money to finance, to be financed and executed. In between, there are a lot of different projects. Let me show you a couple of them. The first one are those that are transport-oriented developments, sort of what the Joy of Living is trying to, project in Moscow is trying to forge over the coming decades, which is let's put people to work close to their homes, or let's put people to live close to their jobs. And so we are taking the equivalent of the big land reserves that we have surrounding the subway terminals at the end of the main metro lines. And we are setting up special purpose vehicles with the private sector. We are making joint ventures with the private sector where we are contributing the land, where we are contributing building permits, we are contributing all the government facilities. We're contributing with water permits, we're contributing with water construction in order to set up a private entity that would build the project across the existing metro terminals so that we can develop urban projects close to their jobs and close to their transportation facilities. That is where we are taking a, let's say, 50-50 approach to urban projects, but we're also doing, some extravagant things. We are investing with a private company, with a private construction company, in 2 prisons. The prison problem in Mexico City, the security problem in Mexico City, as you may have heard, is quite challenging. There are approximately 45,000 inmates in Mexico City, and our existing capacity is built to host 12,000 inmates only. So we are, we are taken by a factor of 3 times. What we did is, talk to a construction company and say, we need to construct 2 new prisons, 2 new jails, and but you don't have a land where to construct it. So we set up a private company where we contributed the land, and the construction company constructs the prisons. I think what we must do as public officials is to contribute with our imagination, is to contribute with our courage. We must listen to markets. You don't have to pretend that that you are smarter than markets. Markets must provide you with the solutions, and you must listen, and you must listen to what they have to say and act accordingly. I think governments have the obligation to use other sources other than their budgets. They must use all their system balances, and that's what we are doing in Mexico City. We are learning from our mistakes, but we don't have the right to be passive. We don't have the right to sit down and see the globalization process pass you by.